You can go from I should start a podcast to actually starting a podcast with Spreaker. Spreaker's tools allow you to record, manage, distribute, and monetize any podcast idea, whether it's about your business or even your cat. And as your podcast grows, Spreaker helps you manage your success and even monetize it. That means all you need to get started is a microphone and a really good idea. Learn more and get 30% off at Spreaker.com/get started. That's SPREAKER.com/get started.
You can stare into the abyss, but no, it's staring right back. Find a Radio Season 1, Episode 6, The Triangle. Alright, Joey, it's 6 episodes into your podcast and you've officially run out of material, right? Talking about basic shapes. No. But I do believe the triangle is probably the most important shape out there if we're going to talk about the maybe occult, esoteric meaning behind it. Without considering myself much of a symbology, synchro, mystic expert at all, I believe that there is a lot that can be learned about the triangle and what it's used for and what it represents. And I've actually strung together very neatly some supporting facts to this idea, and it's going to form an episode of a podcast. So here we go. So triangles, do you feel like you see them more often than not? I don't know, architecture, logos, symbols. Well, maybe after this you might feel like you notice them a bit more. And if you feel like you already do, maybe it'll get weird. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start at 3200 BC, and that's around the time the ancient Sumerians existed. And the Sumerians were believed to be sort of the first race of people living in Mesopotamia, which is now present-day Turkey. And they were believed to be a highly advanced and intelligent society. Again, hard to know what we're comparing their level of intelligence to back then, but I believe they were pretty smart. And looking at their writing system called cuneiforms, which were wedged shaped marks on clay tablets, and many marks were triangles and other ancient forms of kind of like hieroglyphics, believed to be derived from Babylonian texts. And a lot of those were unable to be deciphered completely. So we couldn't really interpret what was on these cuneiforms. So let's hold it right there. There's a civilization before the Sumerians, the Babylonians. And I'm not a history buff, but here's a cool anecdote about Babylon. So we all know the Tower of Babel, right? Well, briefly speaking, the Babylonians believed that they were mortal gods having a test of sorts on Earth to become immortal gods. Maybe like a learning lab. And in an effort to bypass this experience, they wanted to build a tower to reach heaven, where the immortal gods would reside, and that was located in the clouds. And this is a heavy kind of flat earth theme, which is a favorite of mine. And not that I'm a flat earther, but I just think it's a very provocative idea. Show for another day, as I always say. Anyway, as they got closer and closer and saw heaven, building a tower up to heaven, pretty big, but getting close, God struck them down destroyed their tower, scrambled their memory and language. Unable to speak to each other or recall the tower design, they quit. So they would try and talk, didn't make sense, couldn't figure it out. Hence the term babbling, right? Sounds like bullshit. Well, here's a thought. Mount Ararat, Ararat, located in Turkey, which some believe is the remnants of the Tower of Babel, was also, according to the Bible, to be the resting spot for Noah's Ark from the Great Flood. You with me? The world is flooded. The Ark is floating around this crazy, crazy time, and it kind of capsizes on what they think is like an island or something sticking out of the water. And it's maybe the rubble from this giant tower. Think about it. I'd like to really explore with you what I think mountains are. And I know the specific scientific explanations of geometric plate shift millions of years ago, blah, 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 blah. But I think there's an easier, much more rational theory of mountain formation, or should I say deformation, and maybe we'll get into that one day. I guess I'll leave it there. So, all right, well, back on track. What's the most famous triangle you can think of? Maybe a pyramid. How about the Great Pyramids of Egypt? So, lots of triangle symbology is represented in the second dimension as a pyramid. So you think back to tablets that are carved in, the cuneiforms we're talking about, hieroglyphs. Those are all drawn as triangles. So the theories of what pyramids represent or what their purposes were / are and what they align with depends on who you ask. I kind of like the extraterrestrial implications of the Great Pyramids of Egypt. I don't know. I think to how those could be created by lifting these massive blocks, which weigh tons and tons and tons. I forget, I think it's like 100 something tons each, into this perfect square base that is aligned perfectly to true north and is aligned perfectly with the cardinal points of the earth. You know, this corner is north, this one south, east, west. You know, it's pretty remarkable by today's standards to accomplish that, let alone back then. So what we're dealing with back then in the ancient times of the construction of pyramids is obviously a very advanced civilization or outside help. And I've seen the memes floating around like, well, if white people didn't create it, then it must have been extraterrestrials. And I'm not saying all that. You know, whoever did it, they're just pretty fucking smart. Okay. So but the fact that they were once covered in limestone adds to the mystery. And so these things were just bright white and they were reflecting the sun. I've heard the theory that they would use the sun's reflection to bring in clouds, which would ultimately bring in rain, which made the valley fertile. That's how they lived in what's now a desert. Or even the limestone has energy and lightning conducting properties that help the pyramids act as some sort of an airport to send out a signal or harness something. Again, we're talking about something we can't really know about because we don't even really know how it was built, but maybe some sort of airport for God knows what. Of course, the official explanation is the pyramids were built as tombs to honor the pharaohs and their gods, etc. Again, it's a way lamer of a theory, but it is what it is. And if that's the case, why a triangle? And why the exact coordinates under constellation of Orion's belt? Like, why does it have to be a triangle? Why not something much easier to make? Like, I don't know, like the shape of a sarcophagus or the coffins and tombs that they were buried in. Just a flatter, smaller square. Are you seeing the connection I'm trying to make here? The pyramid design itself is purpose built, and I believe the purpose of that is unknown, or at least yet to be identified in a mainstream sense. But there's pyramids all over the world. Bosnian pyramids are pretty famous, very very similar stories. Central South America, and the deep of the ocean, Atlantic, Pacific, everywhere. Grand Canyon, Mars, etc. The point I'm making is these triangle-shaped objects and structures were everywhere, and I believe they have or had a real purpose that is unknown or known and used by a very, very few. So, I guess getting into the symbology is, think of the most important aspect of our culture. It's the reason we get out of bed each day. Money, right? And what's right there on the $1 bill on the backside? A pyramid. A bit different of a pyramid, as the capstone is replaced with an eye. And here's where I'm going to try and not get all conspiracy, but screw it. Well, whose eye is it? Well, here's the theory. It's your third eye, your pineal gland. Right there in the middle of your forehead. Is the symbolism suggesting that those who are in power or godlike having the ability to use their third eye? All right, so look at yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror, or think of your face. And draw an imaginary line from your left eye to your right. And then continue that line up to where your third eye is located, in the middle of your forehead, and then back down to your left eye. Congratulations, you just drew a triangle with an eye at the top. And what is first? But thinking of the triangle with the eye on the top symbol, like how many Super Bowl halftime shows, music and movie award shows have you seen with the triangle or the eye representation, or a musician covering up one eye for a video clip or a photo, or the eye on top of the triangle? Let's think about that. We'll start with a movie called Men Who Stare at Goats. It stars Jeff Bridges as a sort of hippie, free spirit, new age army commander in charge of this new program dedicated to remote viewing. And his academy has, amongst others, has 2 star students competing with each other. George Clooney and Kevin Spacey. Because who else would it be, right? Well, let's think. What is remote viewing? It's the ability to visualize an area of the world or different realms specifically, like a warehouse or a building or a town that you've never been to or never heard about. You're just given maybe like a pinpoint or a description of what this may look like, and you're able to visualize the layout of certain things. And this tactic has been used in the Cold War and Iraq War, and probably a bunch of other situations to find, nuclear warhead weapon sites. Could be used, like I said, for a bunch of other things, but that's what we're going with for this particular example. Anyway, you're using your third eye, right? You're looking inside, and you're not seeing anything right in front of you, you're seeing it internally. Okay, so back to the movie. There's this scene in the beginning where the cadets are trying to loosen up and free their minds, and they're kind of dancing all crazy like in their little dorm area, and loud music playing, everyone's having a good time. And right smack in the middle of a large mural painted on one of the walls is a pyramid with an eye on top, just like the one in the dollar bill. Now, why would that be there? It's just funny. If we're going to talk about that movie, some of the implications there. that was pretty jaw-dropping to see that. It's a pretty good movie. Check it out. So kind of a couple quotes to tie along with my point. Bellamore. I have 3 eyes, 2 to look and 1 to see. And Meister Eckhart, the eye through which I see God is the same eye through God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowing, one love. Kind of throughout history, there's been many, many depictions of what this eye could represent. How about this one? In 1779, shortly after America was officially a thing, Charles Messier discovered the Ring Nebula while looking for comets. So a nebula is an object in deep space from where we can see it, but it's essentially formed when a shell of ionized gas is expelled into the surrounding interstellar medium by a star in the last stages of its evolution before becoming a white dwarf. And this one's in the constellation of Lyra, so it's basically a sun or a star being formed. The interesting thing is that Charles Messier was also a Freemason. And so he has his telescope, he discovers what looks like, it literally looks like an eyeball. It's incredible looking, but pupil and all. And it's believed that this is the all-seeing eye of God. And one of his quotes is, he looks down on us and he favors us as his people. Now, Charles Messier was French, so he's not necessarily talking about America or France, he's talking about the Masons. So who he favors is up for debate, but you can make the connection there. Why is the symbol so important to the Masons and the Illuminati alike? Whether they exist, whether they don't, who knows? But it's being used pretty heavily. An interesting side note, do you remember in 2017, I don't know why I ask if you remember, I'm gonna wait for you to answer, podcast listener. Anyway, October 2017, do you remember the space object Oumuamua? Oumuamua. It passed through our solar system, and it was the first object that came from outside of our solar system. Deep space, interstellar traveler, whatever you want to call it. And some astrologists say that it actually sped up as it left our solar system. You could see it for, I think it was 4 hours as it came through. Could be wrong, don't quote me on that. And then it took off. And like I said, some say that it accelerated on the way out. Oumuamua. But the translation is Hawaiian, because they were the first to discover it, the observatory in Hawaii. And it means messenger from afar arriving first, or scout arriving before an armada. And that's a little disconcerting given how things have kind of gone since then, but here's the kicker. What constellation did Oumuamua believed to be from? Lyra. Same place as the Ring Nebula. So anyway, we're going to go on to logos. Briefly touching on this one because it's fairly obvious at this point, but let's look at it from this point of view. The capstone has the knowledge, and the shape of the triangle has lines cascading outwards. The top spreads the knowledge that the masses get. And I believe this shape is very powerful when used in a charged capacity to subliminally affect or influence a person or a people. I mean, why are there so many triangles and logos? I don't think it's a coincidence. You don't see that your buddy has a coffee shop that's successful and his logo is a triangle, so you're like, well, I guess I'll just do a triangle logo too and try and, you're like, no, there's something to it. And I'm not sure if I can name logos without having some sort of copyright thing, but you can think of 3 right now that are triangles. So next time 2020 lets you out and about, look and see how many you can find in your hood. It gets a little odd, or while you're scrolling through your phone or anything. They're there. So we're going to go back to 1997 to the Phoenix Lights, because this is an Arizona-based podcast. So this one's a little out there. It was a little before my time. I was alive, but a little too young. So I'm going to read the Wikipedia description of this event, and then a few others. But the Phoenix Lights was a series of widely cited UFO, or I guess unidentified flying objects, but UFOs anyway, observed over the skies of Arizona, Nevada, and Sonora, Mexico, March 13th, 1997. Lights of varying descriptions were seen by thousands of people between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. in a space of about 300 miles, from the Nevada line through Phoenix to the edge of Tucson. There were 2 distinct events involved in the incident: a triangular formation of lights seen to pass over a state, and a series of stationary lights seen in the Phoenix area. The U.S. Air Force identified the second group of lights as flares dropped by an A-10 Warthog aircraft that were on training exercise at the Barry Goldwater Range in southwest Arizona. Witnesses claim to have observed a huge Carpenter U-shaped UFO, Carpenter-shaped UFO, which is basically a triangle, containing 5 spherical lights or possibly light-emitting engines. Fife Symington, the governor at the time, was one witness of the incident, and he later called the object otherworldly. These events were quickly attributed, respectively, to military flares dropped by fighter aircraft at Luke Air Force Base and the flares attached to helium balloons released by a civilian. All right, so that's the report. This was literally seen by everyone in the town. It was huge, and here's where it gets a little weird. The craft was silent. It wasn't any noise. We can all think of what an airplane sounds like, or if an A-10 Warthog was doing some sort of exercise, you're going to hear it. It was silent. In measuring an estimated 400 feet in length and 100 feet in width, flying a few thousand feet over ground, people aren't going to think that this is an A-10 Warthog or a weather balloon. It's crap. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of footage of this thing flying right over. And it's, 1997 footage, not like we have today, but it's pretty unmistakable that this is a pretty good one. But where did it come from? Where did it go? And that kind of ties a little bit more into maybe the episode I did about Sedona, about maybe a portal or a vortex as sort of a port of entry here, because it looks like it just literally plopped onto the radar and then is gone. It's cool. But 2 days after this event happened, people are begging for an explanation. What is this? What's going on? Is this the end? Is this the beginning? Who knows? Fife Symington, the governor, he gave this weird press conference where it was all over all the local news networks, where they said they caught the perpetrator of this event. And he brings out this person dressed in your typical alien costume, silver shiny suit with big alien hands, big black eyes in the head, all this stuff, and they're wearing handcuffs, and he's like, "We got him, sorry for this, blah blah blah." And then everyone was taking pictures, and it was this big sarcastic joke. It was really, really odd. And then after that, it was dismissed. So Fife Symington's term as governor expired. He wasn't reelected. I don't think he even ran. And he sort of dismissed this whole thing, and then he became this devout UFO chaser, a ufologist. He got out of politics. He's been on a few other documentaries talking about it and how he believes that it was truly something else. So it was almost like someone scared him to hold this hokey press conference that like totally blew this thing apart. And once he was able to sort of speak a little more freely, it was weird. He just became this UFO nut. But did I mention that the ship was a triangle? Of course it was. All right, so we're going to think. If you're looking at this on YouTube, you're seeing me scroll right now, but I'm going to skip to this part. Let's go back. All right, guys, it's as an unedited podcast. There's going to be some rough moments. This is how I do it. Keep it authentic, right? What about the Bermuda Triangle or the Devil's Triangle? But it's a triangle. It's 3 points, essentially, in the Atlantic Ocean: Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. And the Bermuda Triangle has become quite a sensationalized topic and pretty mainstream. Movies, books, all this stuff about maybe some more of the sensationalized lore about it, maybe making it into something a bit more than it may be. If you think about the Bermuda Triangle, you think you're going to fly over it or sail through it and vanish. And ships cross there every day. Planes fly over it every day, weather permitting, of course. But so it's not like a sure thing. There's not like a giant kraken or something, or a typhoon that just kind of hangs out in this one spot. But there are cases after cases after cases of planes and ships just vanishing from radar. Never found, no SOS, nothing. Gone. So there's a lot to it. But in 2015, NASA admitted the idea of portals are a reality that they have been studying for some time. One of NASA's spacecraft, the Themis, Themis, which is a cluster of probes from Europe, have amassed enough observational data to confirm that a magnetic Stargate portal exists in many locations. Usually these are found where the faraway geomagnetic field bumps up against the passing solar wind. I'm reading this. This isn't my words, but you get it. The result is a direct pathway between the Earth and the Sun. In March 2015, NASA launched its magnetospheric multiscale mission that, among other things, is tasked with studying these portals to gain a deeper understanding of them. Most of these are small with short lives, though others have been observed as gaping holes with sustained lifespans, opening and closing numerous times during the day. Magnetic forces mingle, allowing their crackling energy particles to flow between the Earth and the Sun.
If we want to list every way Spreaker can help podcast publishers, well, we need a podcast of our own. Whether you're in charge of long-running series with extensive backlogs or countless limited series, you can organize and monetize your entire catalog with Spreaker. With Spreaker's customizable publisher plan, you can add collaborators, analyze extensive listener analytics, and even share exclusive content through custom RSS feeds. And that's just for starters. Head to Spreaker.com to learn more. That's Spreaker.com.
These meeting points, called X points by NASA, have been pinpointed by scientists using polar data. So you're saying there's a chance, huh, NASA? Portals could be real? And I trust NASA about as far as I can throw them, but it's pretty interesting. But back to the Bermuda Triangle. And rather than going through case after case of indeed mysterious, but simply that, mysterious, I found a good one, maybe even one that hits pretty hard. But the incident resulting in the single largest loss of life in the history of the U.S. Navy, not related to combat, occurred when a bulk cargo ship with a crew of 309 went missing sometime after March 4th, 1918, after departing the island of Barbados. Although there is no strong evidence for any single theory, many independent theories exist, some blaming storms, some say the ship capsized because it was very heavily loaded, and some suggesting that wartime enemy activity was to blame for the loss. What was the name of the ship? Cyclops. The USS Cyclops. And according to Greek mythology, Cyclops was a member of a savaged, one-eyed race of giants. Boom. One eye in the triangle. I'm pausing for suspense. All right. We're going to bring it all together here. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. It's a really good album, if nothing else. But this one kind of sums it up for me. If you look at the album art, it's black. No stars, but it looks like a sky. With a triangle with a light beam going into one side of the top, or the capstone, and coming through the other side as a rainbow. Just a silver or white light beam processed or filtered through this prism at the top, turning it into a rainbow coming out. Well, how do you interpret that? What can be seen through the top, or the eye of God? Kind of like if you look with this eye, what is typically normal or plain turns vibrant or multi-layered. How about the album title, Dark Side of the Moon? We've seen images of the dark side of the moon, but we can't actually see it. So you just kind of have to speculate what's on the dark side of the moon, and just the whole way that the moon orbits the Earth to a point where we'll never see that side is interesting enough. But let's focus on that thought with a hidden area, okay? And how about the song Brain Damage? And one verse that gets me thinking is this. Well, I'll tell you what I think it means first. So maybe you see all that is normal or like an everyday occurrence, like clouds or something, rain. Then, boom, it's all violently altered or suddenly changed. And you're noticing and wondering what just happened on the inside, but you can't reconcile it. Maybe now you're in a different or higher state of mind or consciousness that is masked or embedded in normal reality. What used to be this is now this, but bigger. And you don't know how to deal with that, and no one can understand that, or you can't articulate it. Okay. Then the only place you can go now is a place where no one can see or visit unless you're in the know. A place where there's others like you, or a place where others can see what you see, like a hyperborea. So that's my breakdown of this. And if the clouds burst, thunder in your ear, you shout, and no one seems to hear. And if the band you're in starts playing different tunes, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this episode of Find It, leave a review. 5 stars, 4 stars. Don't leave 3 stars or 2 or 1. That sucks. But seriously, like, subscribe, wherever you found this. YouTube, Spreaker, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, it's all on there. Leave a comment, share it on your Instagram, get the word out. Every little thing you can do can help me accomplish some of the dreams I have for this podcast and beyond. But also, I wanted to mention, if you have a topic you want to talk about, let's do it. Come on the show. If you have something you want to do an Instagram live about, I spend a lot of my time, not a lot of my time, but a lot of my Find It time on Instagram. So we could partner up. We could do something. Send me a message at Find It Radio, my personal one, at Joe Tukey, JoeTukee, Find It Radio. let's talk. Let's make it happen. If you know somebody who knows somebody, it doesn't have to be anything. This episode, I love this episode, and I think it came together nicely, but we can talk about anything. So just want to keep it going. I want to build this into something with some more momentum. And if you've made it this far through this episode, that means you probably listened to a few more before this. We're probably homies now. We're probably friends. So thank you. If you're hearing this, got love for you. So for Joe, for Find It Radio, you keep looking.
This weekend at Kohl's, take an extra 15% off. Save on men's and women's denim. Get Under Armour shoes for the family, $59.99 and under. And pick up a Power XL air fryer, just $84.99. Plus, take an extra $10 off your back-to-school purchase of $50 or more. Plus, store drive-up. And get a little more for your wallet with Kohl's Cash. Shop Kohl's and Kohl's.com.
Select styles, 15% off with promo code Notebook ends August 16th. Under Armour offers and coupons do not apply. 10 off 50 with promo code BTS10 and August 23rd. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.